Hey everybody, thanks for checking in today. I am here with my dear friend Deanna Melluso. She is a brilliant makeup artist, a lot of fun to work with. We've done a few really cool, very fun jobs together, and we always have a great time. So Deanna, say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, David Cruz, for having me.
Thanks for
I love
being
calling you
here.
the David Cruz.
The David Cruz, I like it.
The David Cruz. I think because it is that name. When I first met you, I was like, David Cruz, right? It just sounds so like David Cruz. Here I
It's like
am.
all
You
one
know?
thing. People always do that with me, actually. It's never Dave or it's like it's
The
one.
David Cruz.
Yeah, the David Cruz.
I think it's great because I do
Hey,
love your
I appreciate that. Thank you.
name.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into the industry? What's your story?
Mhm. Well, I'm from here. I'm from Long Island in Brooklyn. I grew up in Long Island, mostly close to the city. And I kind of started out, just kind of fell into my lap going into makeup. I started out with my aunt and my uncle being into fashion when I was really young and got into New Wave and Boy George. And my uncle worked at a clothing store in Kings Plaza in Brooklyn and taught me all about the 70s fashion and really just kind of kickstarted my whole life with the influence of being into new wave and music and fashion and when I was a kid. And makeup isn't what it is now as being a makeup artist. It wasn't like you would see all the Instagram, it was like from books and everything. So growing up still, I really caught on to that and bought every record album there was and bought everything Boy George did. And from there, I just started like researching a little bit. And then in my early 20s, I think I went to California for a year. I went to San Diego and decided to just party my life away there and then come back and decided to do makeup. And I really just went to a trade school, and that's really how I got in. I went to a trade school for about a year. Her name was Toby Britton,
Okay.
and she used to work on the Cosby Show actually. And she had a little school, and me, another makeup artist named Tama Christie used to work there. We did makeup together there, and another makeup artist and wig maker who now is on Broadway. And we were in this class together, and it was like great. And then from then on, we all separated, did our thing. But I went to this agency and brought my 3 pictures in there that I had. And he was like, okay. And I was like, I didn't know about assisting at all. I thought you would just go to an agency, they would just take you on because you said you were a makeup artist. And like, obviously, it's like the
I
funniest
love
thing.
that.
He was like, looked at my book and he was like, I don't think so. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm like, but this is what I want to do. I'm like, so then I was asking all these questions, and thank God he took a liking to me and got me started. His name is Donnie. I think he's over at Judy Casey now.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, so he helped me out and got me my first assisting gigs. And like, I think the first job he gave me was with Dave LaChapelle, who wasn't available. But from then on, I had my cell phone on me all the time because I wasn't available to get the call. And that was when you had the phone call, you had to rush to the phone to get your answer. It was like,
I remember
it was
that.
crazy, but he gave me such an opportunity. So there really wasn't any rhyme or reason how I got into this. It was just like basically pure luck by just researching and kind of growing up and knowing it was in my blood. But
That's awesome.
yeah, but I guess that basically what catapulted me to do this was as soon as I touched someone's face, I realized that's what I wanted to do. So as soon as I basically was like, did make it for a friend, I think for like a wedding or we were going to the limelight or something, I kind of knew that's where I wanted to go. And it just felt right. Like as soon as I
Wow.
did that, it had the feeling and it just kind of, I just went with it and really studied books and got in it from there. Kind of
Wow.
organic, I guess.
That makes sense to me actually, physically doing the work. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
once you get in it and you start and then you're like, this is what I want to do. Like something
Yeah.
feels right, you know?
Yeah.
I remember the very first time somebody taught me how to blow dry hair, I burned the girl's scalp and I felt so bad. But the hairdresser who taught me was like, you're going to be a really good hairdresser one day. And I was like, why? I just burnt that girl's scalp. And she goes, you weren't afraid to get in it. And if you're not
Real.
afraid
Oh,
to get in
see?
it, you'll learn. And she was
Right.
right. Once you get your hands on, it doesn't matter if it's how it comes out really. But like,
Right.
it's about getting in there. And once you develop that love for it, it just, even now when I touch hair, it's just
It
nice.
feels it feels good, right? It feels like you
Yeah.
should be doing that. I know. Even
Yeah.
when I was like, I think we could all attest, like when I was when I first started too, I would just drag all my friends and do like the craziest makeup,
Yeah.
But it wasn't now, I didn't have like you know, all these companies I could like just go to. It would be like Make It Forever, I think was just out, and
Mm.
maybe like Shoe More had this store in Soho, and I used to be obsessed with it. And I used to go in there and maybe buy like one thing and like try to do that with my friends. But yeah, physically doing it really got me into like seeing where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
And then of course I pushed lipsticks and stuff like that. I call it pushing lipsticks, but I was at a counter for a while, you know, did that whole thing. So
Yeah, I think that's pretty, I think that's a normal, I think that's a good approach too for a lot of makeup artists. That's like, as you're getting the ball rolling, you can make some money just working at a lipstick. You know, like that's, I worked in a
mhm.
salon, you know, so I think that's the same, that's the makeup equivalent, is the same thing, you know what I mean? Of like
Oh, totally.
throwing it on people's faces and just doing it all day like that, you know?
Plus
Um,
you learn so much, I feel like. I mean, I don't know about in a salon, I'm assuming because there's so many like different textures of like hair and like skin,
totally.
you know, we're just learning like real people and you
And it's
know,
just
it got me
constant.
really
It's just
yeah,
constant. People are coming in and out constantly. You're like, by the
yeah.
end of the day, you're like touched 18 heads and you're like, I gotta go, you know, like it's,
I gotta wash my hands.
yeah, like I'm done, you know?
I'm done.
That
I'll hold on
is
my
so funny. How cool. So how has it been for you? As weird as this year has been, how have you kept up your creative side? Because like I said, we've worked together before.
yeah.
And I know, without even knowing your love of like old school music and new wave, and which I totally relate to, but I already knew and could see that you were wildly creative. I mean, anybody could just talk to you for 3 seconds and see that. So how do you keep that going, given that everything's so disjointed and weird right now and nobody can really find their footing in this business, I feel like?
I mean, I think the best thing to do is, I mean, I really found a good way to meditate. So I think that is good, which gets my head clear right now because there's so much noise going around in the back of us. So I think that's like my first like thing that's been really like, keeping me like steady. And then I get to be creative. So
Mm.
I've been like just really, I'm a big movie buff as well. I also grew up with around movies, and I just go back to old movies that my mom like maybe brought me up with, like and old 80s movies. So I'll research that. I'll look at the makeup and I look at the hair, I look at the styling and see where I want to go. And I'll keep on going back to old fashion shows, like way back when. I just keep on getting my brain kind of going. I also do a lot of mood boards. I think that really helps. So if I like, I think it's about being creative in your head. So if you think of an idea like, you know, say you see something on the table, like you're like, oh, this crystal really, the color in that looks really pretty. Let me Google crystals. And then you can go on this whole vamp of like a purple color. And then you can start making a mood board, and then it goes into like morphing into something. And then you can maybe look at the movie you saw from that night before and kind of put that together. And then you get a mood board for going on.
Yeah.
But I think it's just about keeping your head out of what's going on the outside right now and trying not to listen so much and really just get into back into being creative, like reading and touching things. Like
Yeah.
touching things really make me feel creative, like getting your books out again. Like I love looking for an old book, like one that I haven't seen in a while. I'll pick up like an old, you know, like Wayne Bandy or Kevin O'Pon and really actually look at it again for the first time in a while. And then I'll put it back, and then maybe I'll visit in a month, since we've been going on for what, 9 months now. So I went back to it about 3 times already, 4 maybe.
That's good though. I like that. And there's something I like, that everything you're referencing is somehow very tactile. You're a very tactile person, even just
Mhm.
physically holding the book. And that's I'll the mood board thing is a really excellent idea though, because you do get to use them as a springboard to maybe
Yeah.
shoot to just be like, oh, actually, I was mood boarding something that we can do today. But I do like the idea of physically looking, like touching things. Like you can be
Yeah.
online and finding images all day, and that can be inspiring. But there is something about holding something that you're looking at, like a paper, holding the paper of it feels, I don't know, I feel more connected to it. That sounds weird, but you know what
No,
I mean?
I think so. Like, you remember back in the day, which I'm sure, I don't know if you still have, like I have this whole bookshelf, and like maybe if I pull out, here, like I'll pull out this one, like with my yoga mat. But like, look, everything's like
Wow.
dog ears. Like this
Yeah.
is from like, you know, this magazine actually is like a numero back in the day. But if I go to it and I open it up, and I'll be like, oh, like what did I like about this? You know, it's like
Yeah.
physically. And like honestly, like this is part of our like jobs, is like the physical thing of looking at a magazine. Like I still get excited and giddy when I see my name in a magazine. I'm like,
Same.
oh, you
I
know,
know. I know.
that's
It's
so
so
great,
true. It's
you
so
know?
true. It is rewarding. It feels very rewarding. And it's only meaningful to other people in the industry too, when you're like, you know who I just shot for? And you tell me like, oh my God,
Right,
good for you, you know?
right.
And but like with my family, they're like, oh, okay, whatever, that's cool. I'm happy for you. They don't get it unless it's some celebrity on a TV show that they love. And they're like, oh my
Same,
goodness, great. Yeah.
same. They're
Yeah.
like, David Cruz, we know you're like, They're like, who'd you do? And you're like, I did this person. Like my mom, for same thing. My mom, the same, always like, Deanna, it's great that you might be in W Mag, but that celebrity you did the other day, that's when I know you really made it. I'm like, wow.
It's so true. It's so true. It's so funny. My friends are like that too. They're like, oh, that's cool. And then you end up working with somebody like that from like one of the Marvel movies or something. And you're like,
Right.
what? That's a
Yeah.
big deal, you know?
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
okay, that's cool. I like it.
Yeah, but that's how most people I feel like can relate to us and what we do, especially with what's going on right now. Like you could maybe say, I think it's really hard right now for a family to grasp. I don't know about you, but what's happening where you're like, I ask for space with my family, or like, because sometimes in the beginning it was like, are you working yet? Are you working yet? Are you working yet? And it would just be like a lot. So I would just be like, I'll let you know when that happens,
Yeah.
and just give me a day to day, and I'll tell you an update.
Yeah.
But I think we have to also have boundaries with that as freelancers, because then it gets really pressurized for us to work knowing what's happening outside. I was saying meditate and kind of grasp onto things, because then you don't have to worry about all those outside people being like, are you working?
Yeah.
Is that celebrity calling you anymore?
Yeah. It's so true. You know what's funny is I realized that people outside of industries can't help themselves, no matter what industry. It's not just us that gets that. I had a
Right.
roommate years ago who worked in music, and he was a recording engineer, a good
Okay.
friend, and he worked one time with the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And his dad would not stop getting on him about it and be like, you should call those Chili Peppers again. And he's like,
Oh,
that's not how it works, Dad. And I
I
felt
love how the dad was like, you should call Anthony Kiedis again and see. Like,
personally,
they're
yeah,
precious. And that's true, right? Because they're
yeah.
like, why not just call this?
I don't get it. Why isn't that happening? You're like,
Yeah.
he goes, that last thing was just a fluke. Like that did
Right.
not, it was so funny. It was awesome. But yeah, no, I get that. And it is funny. It's true. Like with that, it's good. Like you said, everyone is well-meaning when they're asking, well, how are things going? What's going on with work and blah. And it all comes from a good place.
Of course.
But it is good to say, why don't we talk about something else?
Yeah.
Let's discuss another thing. Because I
Yeah.
literally spend the whole day worrying about my career. I don't want
Of
to talk
course.
about it now out loud.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I give my family like a 20-minute. I think it's really good also right now to be healthy with everything that's going on. One thing that's getting me through is like boundaries, like to set your boundaries up with anyone that you think you just need to, and I think that is really helpful going forward in our industry in the future and right now for our sanity and just getting through all this. Because let's just face it, our industry, entertainment, fashion has really just got hit really bad. So it's like you may have like a couple weeks and you think everything's back to normal, but then all of a sudden things could happen, and then maybe 2 weeks you're like sitting by the phone being like, making mood boards, but also wondering, and you have to just keep your head up and be positive. And I think not go into that whole like negative trip of like what's like that artist trip that everyone goes on, whatever it is in your head that you just have to kind of erase it and just do something else.
Yeah, it's a very easy leg to go down. It is a very easy thing to do. Wow. So where do you see the future? What do you see for the future of our industry? Where do you see it going? What direction do you see it taking?
I mean, I think it's gonna take a little time. I think next year is gonna be hopefully a pickup, but I do see it getting back to whatever our normal is gonna be. I don't really know, but I guess I see it getting back to normal eventually is the right thing to say, maybe, or I don't really know what the future holds for us. I think we're also trying to figure it out day by day. I think the companies are still, trying to figure it out, but I think there's going to be a future for us. I don't think it's not going to be there. I think it's just going to take time to figure it out. So I think whatever you could get your hands on, just keep it and be happy, and be blessed that you have it. But going forward, I think there's going to be maybe some bumps in the road.
Yeah.
And then once we get over those bumps in the road, I think it'll be just smooth sailing. But I think the one thing that I see changing maybe is like Fashion Week. I think that's going to be a big change, and something I love doing and very much involved with. But even for September, and I was thinking about doing it, I was like, for the shows that I do, I'm not sure if that's a safety measure for me or my assistants to be doing. So I had to take that into account where, I think that will be something that you as an artist have to figure out is fashion shows or anything where you have a multiple of models, and how are you going to be sure that you're safe and then all your models are safe? Because I think right now, I think that's the biggest thing for us is to to make sure that we and every model feels safe within our hands,
Yeah.
and whatever you could do to make that happen.
Yeah.
I just think there's gonna be bumps in the road. I think in the future, everyone has to just really be cautious about what's going on for makeup artists. Make sure I've done so many cleaning on my kits every day. I have all these like, little jars that, you see, everyone's makeup artist kits are just like, everything's down to like a little nugget of like your
Totally.
lotion. And then, so that I think
Toothpastes and
is,
every yeah.
I
It's
never
so
thought I
true.
would use so much as like Ziplocs and like to go stuff. And I think, I think
It's
that's
so
what,
true. Makeup artists are the best at that. It's so crazy. Hairdressers are always walking around with like full-size cans of hairspray, and
Mhm.
makeup artists will have every color imaginable in the tiniest little palettes. And
Yeah.
it's crazy. It's incredible. Like I'm like, and you look at it as a hairdresser, you're like, how long does that take them to make
Oh my
that?
God. I'm still doing it. I have like stuff that I piled up in the like my room being like time to depot, but like it takes like a minute. But I think I think every aspect of this industry is gonna have their little thing, like everyone's gonna work. I think every company just has to find their way. And I think navigating in 2020 was probably so hard for every company, or, realizing what are they going to do to move forward. So I
Yeah.
think 2021 is going to be like where we're able to kind of see what we could do and move forward with it in a better way and a better
Mhm.
system. And hopefully everyone will be like working and, a much better situation for everybody. Because don't forget too, I feel like a lot of people also moved out of New York and like
Yeah.
went to Europe or went to California, or, so it's like, I think a lot of people are still, unsure what's going to happen. So
True. Yeah.
I
It's a
hope
good
it
time
doesn't
to look
sound
for an
like
apartment in the city.
bad. What's that?
Sorry, I said it's a good time to look for a new apartment in the city. It's like
Oh
every
my God.
it's crazy.
Where are you in Brooklyn, right?
I'm in Brooklyn. Yeah, I'm in Park Slope.
And is that everything went down over there or?
Not that much. I know a few people that left, but this is more of like actual families, people with kids kind of area.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a bit more stable. I feel like a lot of downtown, a lot of people like took off,
Yeah.
and didn't come back. So that'd be interesting. I don't know. So I'm always thinking between hairstyling and real estate. I don't know why. I love it. I'm fascinated by real estate.
You could do
But
both.
yeah,
Do a little side
I could do
project.
that. No, you're right. That is interesting. I like that you do that and that you guys always have these like it is super time consuming, but I love that you guys have your kit set up like that. It fascinates me to no end.
It's great, but I think like for makeup and so many companies right now, if you look at the positive side of like 2020, a lot of new companies came out and a lot of things actually did happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure about hair, but for makeup, a lot of positive things happened, which for me was like my community. I was talking a lot with a lot of artists during this whole time, and I got to talk to people that I maybe haven't talked to in a couple of years, and that
Mm,
was really nice. And
mm,
with the unemployment situation, I
mm.
really got involved with the think tank on Facebook, and they really helped. So it was like coming together for me was like really a nice part of 2020. And also
Totally.
like, getting rid of people that were toxic that I didn't want to be around, like
Yeah.
things like letting go of the bad and putting in the new. So I think
Yeah.
that was also like a good thing to happen.
That was
Realizing
good.
what
Yeah.
your future is going to be. Sorry.
No, you're right. That was good. There was a real sense of community in the industry.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people were like, "Hey, how are you doing? What's going on?" Like I still get text messages and constantly from like different makeup artists who are like checking
Yeah.
in, seeing what's happening. That is really funny. I do like that. And you're right. There have been some other interesting developments. I do think to a degree that this pandemic accelerated a process that I think was going to happen anyway. I do think
Do you?
yeah, to some degree. I think some companies um, would have had difficulty down the road anyway. I think this just
Right.
sort of like sped up what was going to be kind of like where the industry was going because I feel like it always goes in waves. Sometimes it's really prosperous and great, and other times it's
Hmm.
tight. And I felt like it was inevitable that we were going to kind of sort of hit a tight time, you know?
That makes a lot
Um,
of sense though, now that you're
yeah.
saying that. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that was coming around anyway, and now I think that this just sort of like sped it up is all,
Hmm.
and just kind of hit us all really fast and unexpected. Because when it's good, you think the party's never gonna end. Like I was working,
I just keep on going. Yeah,
yeah,
after
you think it's
hours.
never gonna stop.
After hours nonstop, but
Totally. I was working constantly. Like I literally didn't have a day off. I was traveling all
yeah.
the time, and I was like, and
Right.
like, oh my God, why did I?
And
Yeah.
now do you look at it and you're like, I kind of like in the back of your head too, sometimes you think, oh, I'm thankful for the little break I have. Like it's because sometimes we were working so much that we didn't have time to even think, right?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And you're right about too, it gave me a moment not to think about who I had in my life personally and professionally, and who
Right.
I needed to like let go of and who I needed
Yeah.
to like zone in on more. But yeah, I do think the break was good. Like initially I was like painting rooms and doing all this stuff. And then I went into this like, is this ever gonna end? And now I'm like, it'll sort itself out. It always does.
It
It,
always does.
yeah. It's just that where it's just taking longer than I think we all expected or saw, but you know.
I know, but unfortunately, like what we do for a living has to, I mean, I know like I had a job a couple weeks ago and they tested me, for COVID. And I was like so thankful because the lines were like
So
so
long.
crazy. Yeah. So like my husband waited like 5 hours for a test. So I mean, it's like, even though we have to take a test and like that's a little new and we have to wear a face mask, all these things, like at least we're able to work right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, give me all the tests I could take. Like, I don't, as long as I'm on set and I'm healthy and everyone I know, I appreciate that right now. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm happy to see like the little change that probably will happen in the future. Will we have to wear a mask for the next year? Probably.
Yeah.
Maybe the year after. I would say yes.
Yeah. I think so. To be honest, I'm not mad at the masks. If
No,
anything, I'm like, I can't believe I let everybody breathe on me all the time.
I
Now that I don't have to, I'm like, oh, this is better.
I know with you guys the hairspray too. Like now I'm like I get to
Totally.
dodge the hairspray a little better, it's great.
Yeah.
But it's true if you think about like we're so close to people. And the one thing that we're like probably should be wearing a mask if we really think about how
Yeah,
close
even
we
before
are.
this,
Yeah.
It's so
With all
true.
my yeah. And the medical supplies I have like are ridiculous right now, but I'll probably still use them. Like there's a little tip I have like there's a thing called Tagaderm, which is like, I don't know if I use it with you, but it's like basically a plastic thing that goes over your hand.
Hmm.
And so I use my hand as a palette a lot. Most makeup artists do, but
Yeah.
I really don't like using a separate palette for mixing. It's just on my hand. But it was like worried because there's so many germs. So I use this thing that hospitals use. It's called Tagaderm, and you just stick it on. It's a piece of plastic, clear.
Amazing.
I don't know if it's plastic per se, but you can mix your foundations on it, and then you take it off, and the next person you just put that on. So
Oh,
you don't
great.
have. Yeah, it's like the best thing, and I personally find it great.
That's very
Um,
clever.
it is cool. So I'll probably
Yeah.
still use that in the future because also I think models appreciate it because you're not like cleaning your hand and then putting something else on it and
Yeah.
then cleaning, so it's actually sanitized for everybody. So
Yeah.
I learned
Absolutely.
about
And
that.
it's just consider it because ultimately, once we get on the other end of this, everyone's going to be much more hyper aware of
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And some people will be a bit more intense than others. And something like that, like just a clear piece of plastic or film or some sort of whatever it is that isn't from skin to skin is going to make them feel
Right.
so much better. It's
Yeah.
protection and a protection for you too at the end of the day. And you don't have to give up your way of doing a thing.
No. And that's, I think, what everyone has to find. Like, even though things are changing, everyone has to find their way that they like to work. Like for me personally, that's how I like to work. But some people like, using a palette. So if that works for you, great. But there's so many new things that happen from this,
Yeah.
like new palettes that came out. So there's always going to be a new way. And I think
Yeah.
that's what's also really positive. There's always new things that came out for artists, for makeup artists, like that things are able to use going forward. So
Yeah.
that was my own little way. I love it. It's like,
I like that too. I think that's very clever. I think that's awesome. And you're right. I do think that it is going to get better. It's just that we need to just not allow ourselves to get too dejected about where we are now. And also don't wallow in where you were in January and how great it was and how much money you were making, or you'll go crazy.
No, I think that's the whole thing. Like, I know in the beginning, I don't know if you were hearing this too, like a lot of people like, but I was doing so good last year. I had a great, to 2020. And like, I did too. It was great. I had a great start. I had a new agency. I was like ready to go.
That's right.
And then,
Yeah.
And then, everything hit the fan like everyone else. And then there's like, you had a great couple months, but what am I going to do? Sit there and still 9 months later, think about the great 3 months I had last year?
Yeah.
Like, it's just
It's
like,
about
you got
what's
to like,
coming. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's true.
gotta
Like,
move on.
I mean, I feel like anytime if you really want to move forward, it's okay to look to the past as a guide, just like when you're driving, occasionally looking in your rearview mirror. It's
Mhm.
okay to occasionally look, but the focus is on the front. You need to
Exactly.
focus on where you're headed, not where you were, I like
That's very good, David Cruz. I like that whole thing.
that. That's for you. You can use
I'll
that.
keep that one. That's a keeper for me.
Love it. Oh my God. Deanna, thank you so much for doing this. This is amazing.
Thanks for having me. You're always such a peach to talk to, Mr. David Cruz. So seriously, you're great. So happy to know you.
Anna. So happy to know you too. You're a goddess. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're looking forward to seeing what else you do. I'm excited to see where your career goes. It's going to be awesome.
Thank you. Keep up those memes with me because they're so funny. I love you for it.
I know. I live for posting those like online memes. They're so much fun. And honestly, they crack me up. It keeps me going.
Yeah.
So
No, it keeps me going.
it's great. I'll go. Mwah. Thanks, babe.
Have a great one. Lots of love.